The price of a second chance. The rain in Port Haven never stopped, not really. It came in waves, sometimes a drizzle, sometimes a deluge, but always there, like a heartbeat the town couldn't shake. Lila Reed stood at the counter of their cramped kitchen, counting pennies, literal pennies scraped from the bottom of a chipped ceramic jar. The total came to 2.37. Not enough for a loaf of bread, let alone the $8,462 they owed on the mortgage to keep the bank from taking their home. Marcus, her husband, sat at the table, staring at a stack of bills, his calloused hands idle for the first time in years. The fishing boat he'd poured their savings into was gone, repossessed after the cannery closed and the fish stopped biting. "We'll figure it out," Marcus said, his voice hollow. He didn't look at her. He hadn't looked at her much since the boat was taken. Lila didn't answer. She didn't have the energy to argue, not again. Instead, she turned to the sink, scrubbing a plate that was already clean. The foreclosure notice was taped to the fridge, its bold red letters screaming, "Final warning. Vacate by November 1, 2025. Across town, in the dim glow of Clara's diner, you sat in a corner booth, nursing a coffee that had gone cold. You'd only been in Port Haven a month, a stranger with a duffel bag and enough cash to rent a cabin on the edge of town without questions. The locals whispered about you. Some said you were a retired tech mogul, others a con artist hiding from the law. You didn't care for the gossip, but you listened. That's how you heard about the Reeds. They're good people, Clara said, wiping the counter with a rag older than her diner. Lila's got a heart like a lighthouse, always shining for someone else. Marcus, he's stubborn, but he'd give you the shirt off his back. Shame what's happened to them. You nodded, stirring your coffee. What's their story? Clara leaned in, her voice low. Lost everything when the cannery shut down. Marcus bought that boat thinking he could go independent, but the bank took it. Lila's bakery went under too. Couldn't compete with the chain stores in the next town. Now they're drowning in debt, and Evan Teller's circling like a shark. Evan Teller, you asked. Local lender. Not the kind you want to owe money to. Clara shook her head. They need a miracle. You didn't believe in miracles, but you believed in chances. You'd had one once, long ago, before you lost your sister to her own debts and bad choices. You'd failed her, trusted the wrong people to help her, and the guilt had followed you like the rain. Maybe that's why you stayed in the diner that night, watching the door, waiting for a reason to act. Lila and Marcus walked in just before closing, their faces drawn, coats soaked. Clara waved them to a booth, but they hesitated, likely knowing they couldn't afford even a cup of coffee. You watched them whisper, Lila's hand brushing Marcus's arm, his shoulders stiffening. They were fighting without words, the kind of silence that cuts deeper than shouting. You stood, leaving a 20 on the table, and approached them. Lila and Marcus Reed. They looked up, startled. Lila's eyes were sharp, wary, like she was sizing you up for a scam. Marcus just looked tired. Who's asking? Lila said. Someone who can help, you said. I heard about your situation. I'm offering you a way out. Marcus snorted. We don't take charity. It's not charity, you said, pulling up a chair. It's a deal. I'll give you $10,000 to cover your mortgage and some of your debts. But you have to earn it. Lila frowned. Earn it how? 3 tasks, you said. Complete them, and the money's yours. No strings, no tricks. But you have to do them together. Marcus leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What's in it for you? You hesitated. The truth that you were chasing redemption, trying to fix a past you couldn't change was too raw to share. Let's just say I've got my reasons, you said. Do we have a deal? They exchanged a look, the kind that carried years of shared history, pain, and love. Lila nodded slowly. What's the first task? The first task was simple on the surface: clean up the old community garden behind the library, a tangle of weeds and broken benches abandoned since the town's budget dried up. You gave them a week, tools, and $200 for supplies. Work together, you said. No splitting up. The garden was a mess, thorns snagging their gloves, mud sucking at their boots. Lila hacked at a blackberry bush, her breath sharp. This is pointless, she muttered. We could be looking for jobs, not playing in the dirt for some stranger. Marcus yanked a root from the ground, tossing it aside. You think I want to be here? At least it's something. Something that won't pay the bills, Lila snapped. Like that boat of yours. Marcus froze, his jaw tight. You're never gonna let that go, are you? Lila turned away, tears stinging her eyes. They worked in silence for hours, the distance between them growing with every weed pulled. But by the third day, something shifted. Marcus noticed Lila struggling with a heavy stump and wordlessly took over. Lila brought him water without being asked. They started talking not about the boat or the bills, but about small things, the way the gulls sounded at dawn, the pie Lila used to bake with her grandmother's recipe. By the end of the week, the garden was clear, the benches repaired, and a small plot was ready for planting. You met them at the garden on the 7th day, inspecting their work. Not bad, you said. You're halfway there. Halfway, Marcus said, wiping sweat from his brow. You said 3 tasks. And you've done 1, you replied. Second task, Lila, you bake enough to feed the town at the harvest festival next week. Marcus, you fix up that old skiff at the marina for the kids' rowing program. You've got 5 days. Lila paled. I haven't baked for anyone since the shop closed. I can't. You can, you said firmly. And you will. Together. The festival was a gamble. Lila hadn't touched her mixing bowls in months, the failure of her bakery still a fresh wound. But she borrowed Clara's kitchen, and Marcus helped, measuring flour, cracking eggs, his hands steady despite his usual impatience. Lila's pies, blueberry, pecan, and her grandmother's apple filled the air with warmth. At the festival, the townsfolk lined up, their smiles a quiet balm to Lila's fear. She sold every slice, earning enough to cover a utility bill and a spark of pride she thought was lost. Marcus, meanwhile, spent nights at the marina, sanding and patching the skiff. The work reminded him of his boat, the one he lost, but also of his father, who taught him to tie knots and read the tides. When the kids took the skiff out for its first row, their laughter echoed across the water, and Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. You watched from a distance, a shadow among the festival crowd. Clara sidled up, her eyes knowing. You're not just doing this for them, are you? You didn't answer, but her words hit close. You'd given your sister money once, thinking it would save her from her debts. Instead, it fed her addiction, and you lost her anyway. The reeds were different, you told yourself. They had to be. The final task was the hardest. Face Evan Teller, you said, meeting them at the diner. Negotiate your debt. Get him to cut it in half or give you more time. Use what you've learned. Lila's hands shook. Evan doesn't negotiate. He'll break Marcus's legs first. Then be smarter than him, you said. You've got 2 days. Evan's office was a squat building by the docks, reeking of cigarette smoke and desperation. The Reeds went together, armed with a plan. Lila spoke first, her voice steady, offering to bake weekly for Evan's poker games as collateral. Marcus backed her up, promising to repair Evan's fleet of rental boats. They leaned on each other, their words weaving a shared strength. Evan, surprised by their nerve, agreed to extend the loan 6 months no interest. When they told you, standing in the cleared garden with the first sprouts poking through the soil, you handed them a check for $10,000. You earned it, you said. Marcus took the check, his eyes searching yours. Why us? Why all this? You hesitated, then spoke. I had a sister who needed help. I gave her money, but I didn't give her a reason to fight for herself. She didn't make it. I wanted to give you something better, a chance to rebuild, not just your bank account, but you. Lila's eyes softened. What was her name? Anna, you said, the word heavy. Her name was Anna. They didn't press further, and you didn't stay long. You left Port Haven the next week, your cabin empty, your name already fading into the town's gossip. But the Reeds stayed, their home safe for now. Lila started baking again, small orders at first, then a stall at the market. Marcus found work repairing boats, his hands steady again. The garden bloomed, a quiet testament to second chances. As you drove out of town, the rain finally stopped, and the sky opened, just for a moment, to let the light through.